Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your work. So welcome everybody to this edition of the Be Empowered Show. I'm your host Graham Hopkins, and today we have a special guest back again. His name is George Helou, and the Be Empowered Show is really a conversation about what it's like to feel empowered, to feel connected to your own truth, as opposed to feeling separate from that truth. And George is an ideal guest to really drill home this whole concept of being empowered. So, George, welcome again to the Be Empowered Show.
Thank you, Graham. It's a pleasure to be back.
So, George, I've just re-listened to the first video that we did together, and I always know that I'm talking to somebody who has the truth when I listen to a video and I pick up new nuggets of information, or new little gems, if you like, every time I listen to it. And that's what it's been like to re-listen to your video again this morning, George.
That's really
I was just wondering if it's okay with you, if I can just outline a few little gems that I got from that video, and then you embellish on that, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
So what I've gleaned from this is that your EP7 course, which is a coaching course, it's called EP7, it's Empowered for Purpose, with 7 steps. And I'll just define those 7 steps. It's step 1, empowered identity. Step 2, personal audit. Step 3, reignite your imagination. Step 4, deepen your intuition. Step 5, finding purpose. Step 6, living on purpose. And step 7, environmental alignment. So what I gleaned out of step 1, George, is that you literally deconstruct what it is to be an empowered identity. You establish credibility that we are bioengineered with the capacity to be extraordinary, but neurologically we are configured to be ordinary or subordinary in some areas of our life. Then the second part of it is you help us in terms with what it means to connect with the real you. That means your true identity. And then you define that as the true identity is the empowered identity, and any deviation to that is an illusion. This is really, really powerful stuff. And maybe we can start off by you adding to that and just tell me whether I'm seeing that correctly.
Absolutely. You know, we just need the credibility of information to start to decipher between those ideas that deviate us from our true identity, which is capable, it's resilient, it has an incredible imagination, it can achieve anything it wants to. The true identity is so worthy that no criticism, nothing can be said that would derail it. So you could imagine when we feel insecure, when we lose our confidence, it's because we are deviating from that truth of our true identity. And that's why it's so important to go through a processing out of what you're not and a processing into what you are, so that now you can come from that place where you are dynamic, where you celebrate your worth, and you back yourself to be able to figure things out and to be resilient no matter what the universe throws at you.
Excellent. George, I thought I'd just show the people. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but that's what's on your website. It might get a bit of reflection there.
Yep.
But it's the 7 steps that you've been outlining. You've outlined 4 of those steps already in the previous video, and we're up to step 5, which is finding your purpose. So the people can find that on www.lifecoachperth.com, the EP7 process.
Yes, and now recently, Graham, I've changed it so that they could download the brochure and have the 7 steps in a PDF.
Excellent.
So they can do that on Life Coach Perth, or they can go to mindpowercoach.com/EP7, and there are videos there and the brochure that they can download as well.
Cool. So if people really resonate with what you're going to share in steps 5, 6, and 7, would you recommend they go back and watch the previous video of the steps 1 to 5?
Yeah, I mean, ideally they would have watched the first one already, because that journey from steps 1 to 7, it is a nice journey to have, because the first 4 steps are being empowered for the 5th step, purpose. And then steps 6, 7 are all about helping you truly live that purpose and not get derailed. So really the whole program is about purpose. So if you listen to the first 4 steps, it's foundation to that. So if someone's watching this video first, I'd pause it here, go enjoy the first video, and then come and recommence and continue on with steps 5, 6, 7.
Can I highlight something else I picked up from your last video that might help people do this? Is that you were talking about the power of attraction, and then you said if you don't do the first 4 steps, then you won't have the magnet working within you to be able to attract what you desire. Is that a fair analogy? I mean, you weren't actually saying that. I've taken it out of context a bit, but it still applies, doesn't it?
It's very aligned, very 100% accurate, because the way you carry yourself is predetermined by how you identify with who you think you are. And doesn't that pretty much set up how you see and you process your environment? That is a magnet, isn't it? Because that's going to determine how open you are, how clear you are, or how insecure you are. And that as a magnet is going to determine whether people believe in you and whether they trust you and feel easy to respect you. Definitely it is a magnet.
So this whole coaching program is more about making you the magnet instead of trying to attract things into your life when you're not a magnet.
Yeah, so the whole program is about equipping you with the tools so that you can go into all the components within you that alter your magnetic field. So the way you carry yourself, people feel, gee, I really like that guy, or gee, I really want to connect with that person. Gee, I really feel like that person, I feel at ease with them, I feel like there's someone I want to invest in, no matter what kind of investment that is, a relationship, business, whatever. And ultimately, you have the tools within you to finally tweak. And all you're ever tweaking is the context in which you make sense of yourself and your world. And that is constantly altering your signature, your magnetic signature.
So it's empowering yourself to tweak it yourself. I take it that's
absolutely, absolutely.
So George, do you want to kind of give us a little bit of an overview over the first 4 steps before we go on to purpose?
Yeah, sure. So you know how you got to processing out about the true identity is the empowered identity. So what is it that deviates us is simply ideas that don't work, that made us think that that's just the way the world works, and it makes us trip over ourselves. It makes us doubt ourselves and go about things in a way that's counterproductive. So that, what it does is that creates insecurity in us, and that insecurity, I like to say, it throws us out of our structural integrity. Now, structural integrity is power, because what it means is you can handle any obstacles, and you're resilient, and you're capable. So it's like structural integrity of a house. So you may recall we finished step one talking about, well, what are the principles that would help you connect to that structural identity of the real you? And so principles are saying, this is the truth about you. You matter. This is how to handle a situation that seems threatening. This is how to handle someone who is being disrespectful. So I ended up developing 52 empowerment principles so that you're never ever in the dark with why you're being disempowered and how to be empowered in the way you believe, think, feel, and act, so that you restore that structural integrity and your power's turned on. So that was step one in a nutshell, what you covered, and then the principles. Because there's your grid reference.
George, how did you come across these 52 principles?
Well, I've searched for them initially, and I didn't know how many I would find. And I noticed that there was a lot of principles in religious scripture and a lot of principles in New Age universal laws kind of stuff. And then there was a lot of macro principles in like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and the 4 Agreements and 7 Spiritual Laws with Deepak Chopra. So I noticed that there was a lot of coming at principles, but I just felt like there wasn't a comprehensive body of work that wasn't indoctrinated with religion or New Age, right? So eventually I took a bold move when I couldn't find it, and I just started to write them based on 15 years of personal development. And I don't know whether I mentioned this last time, but I got to 67 and realized I had a problem because I wasn't slowing down, Graham. Like, I just keep coming up with a context where we're disempowered and write the principle how to be different to get empowered. And unfortunately, with my naivety, I didn't realize that there's infinite contexts you can conjure that would give you an opportunity to write the way to be so that you can achieve what you the value. So really, what that did was it allowed me to take a step back and have a look at everything that I'd written, and then I was able to define what a principle was in such a way that not even dictionaries gave me this pure definition. And so basically, what is a principle by definition? It is how to move from a place where you don't have the value to a place where you live that value. So what is that value? Well, the values are endless. Anything you value. Do you value respect? Do you value compassion? Do you value being resilient? Do you value causality, so you can get to root causes of things? Do you value perfection, but you don't want to have, you don't want to suffer the journey of a perfectionist, but you love the outcomes of perfection? Then there's a principle to help you with that. Confrontation. Do you value confrontation? No, most people are afraid of confrontation because they can only conceive confrontation with conflict and emotional pain. But we know that if you don't confront your issues and you don't confront certain people where there's a real clash, the problems don't go away, and often they get worse. And eventually, you know, we procrastinate off confrontation until it's so bad we confront with such frustration that it's like throwing acid on the situation, creates blowback, and then what have we got? We've got justification why we shouldn't have confronted in the first place. So then now that I wrote the principle, and I think, did I cover it in the last video about how to confront?
No.
Okay, so this example of confrontation was when you confront, rather than have a conclusion that gives you justification to judge, and therefore you move in with judgment and disrespect because you're making assumptions of ill intent. Instead of that, which is the usual, instead you seek to be confused and move into the space confronting with a seeking to understand from a place of humility with a respectful approach. Imagine if people confronted each other that way. Doesn't that create the beautiful space for the other person not to feel attacked? It invites them to offer if they were in a bad mood or they erred in judgment with you. Makes them want to apologize because they so appreciate the graceful way you approached them about it. Or if you were wrong, you'd find out, and it wouldn't be about an ego. It would be about, oh, actually, this is really what happened. Ah, I'm so glad I asked you. And then all of a sudden you realize you misinterpreted something. Do you know? So that is a classic empowerment principle. But then what it made me realize was, well, there are lots of contexts. And so the reason why I settled on 52 was because I just wanted enough of them so that you've got an ample, comprehensive grid reference, so that whenever you're disempowered, that you might gravitate and learn about the 7 or the 15 of them that would give you a roadmap, give you an insight as to how you can change so that you can move out of that disempowerment and into an empowering state.
Excellent. How my mind thinks, George, when I think of 52, because I know the power of numbers, I add 5 and 2 together to get 7, which is perfection. So I would say it's the perfect number.
You know, people have come to me and they've said 52 was a good number to choose. And look, it came down to intuition for me to choose 52 because I knew it needed to be around 50. You know, 40, it would have been fine. 60, we're getting to the point where we're pushing the envelope, going further than we need to go. But the reason why I didn't want to choose 50 is because I just felt like it was such a strong, bold, masculine number. It just sounded too contrived, you know? And so when I scaled it back, I thought 52 is nice. It's almost like theme your life with a principle a week and you've covered it in a year, you know? It's you know, a principle a day, 52 days later, a week, and 6 weeks, you've pretty much covered all the principles. So I kind of chose 52 because it just felt good, but it's nice to get confirmation that it's a good number, you know.
Excellent. So
that's step 1, right? And step 2 was simply the personal assessment, so you know where you're at relative to the empowered identity. So that way you have an opportunity to migrate. So every time you stop aligning with a life lesson principle that's not empowering, but you were conditioned to believe it was, every time you stop doing that and you align with an empowering principle, you're literally reinventing yourself, aren't you? So what happens is if you've mapped the empowered identity and it's so clear to you that now with personal assessment you start to know where you're really at, then that creates journey, doesn't it? It creates journey because now you can migrate because you're moving from a place where you know you're at. But if the empowered identity is vague and you don't know where you're at with great detail through the personal assessment, personal audit, then no wonder we feel like we're kind of losing our way in a dark room half the time, scratching our heads, figuring, why do things always go wrong? Why is this happening to me all the time? The personal assessment finally turns on the torch and illuminates what's within you so that you know exactly where you're out of structural integrity and where you are in structural integrity so that you can start reinventing yourself. Steps 3 and 4, yeah, go on.
There's been ability for where you're at. It's like taking your head out of the sand and realizing that it's a good thing to have your head out of the sand and you can actually breathe. One of the things I've picked up from your teaching is that when people are shown the truth, they'll want to take the head out of the sand, because they'll see that having the head in the sand is not serving them.
Yes, yes. My last session was with an amazing guy, and when we were doing the first personal assessment with him on disempowerment, we'd already done one on empowerment, and he literally lived all 52 empowerment principles on the fact that he's a runner and he's a great runner. And we did a personal assessment on how he gets empowered. But now when we did a disempowerment one, he was talking about how he, when someone talks to him in a disrespectful tone, he doesn't speak up for himself, and he builds resentment within himself. And we did a full assessment on that. Now, when the belief systems were coming out, he began to laugh, Graham. He began to laugh, and he began to shake his head like, "Oh my God, they're shocking," you know. I said, "So you know this is not you?" He goes, "Yeah, but gosh, in a really weird, sadistic way, I'm loving seeing this because it's so ridiculous. It's good to see it. It's good to finally shed light on how I'm doing this to myself, how I'm making it worse, you know." And yeah, I love the fact that we are such amazing people that just give us the truth. We just want the truth. And we will default to that authenticity of wanting to do right by ourselves and others, you know.
Yeah. Just
yeah.
in that, there's a great truth, isn't there?
Absolutely. The truth does set you free. It allows you to experience that statement with its full power and truth, you know.
I like
it.
Do
you want me to kind of briefly go on to step 3 and 4 quickly, and then that will allow us to continue on with purpose in step 5?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, George.
Yeah. So imagination, in the last video, we just quickly talked about how in the ebb and flow of life, every single time things are falling apart in your life, it's because there's an idea as a context filter that's tripping you up. It's compromised your perception, it's blinkered you, and it's not allowing you to see the way you need to be, which is why you can't have a breakthrough. So during that contraction, you get to find out what idea is outdated, and then from that contraction, you get to engage outside the previous blinkered range an idea that would give you the breakthrough. And there you expand differently, and then you go beyond the previous limitation into a new peak for it to happen all over again, right? So the power of step 3, imagination, is saying imagination isn't a creative thing you do that you just add, like, you know, you just art or music, or it's not something that you just do for the fun of it. Your imagination is a part of your empowerment. It's a part of your everyday ebb and flow of life. It's every single time you're going to improve your life, it's because of the next idea that will get you to reframe the way you see things and empower you, expand your perception, and therefore from that informed place, you make different decisions and have your breakthrough. So we really lock that down in step 3 and help you develop your imagination so that it serves you in all the areas where it's underdone. And step 4 dovetails beautifully with imagination, because intuition is about being in the zone. It's about that beautiful flow where you're so tuned in, you anticipate in real time, and you just are making one optimized decision after the other, and before you know it, you've achieved something that even you are so in awe of. And we see that in sports people, we see it in artists, we see it in inventors and innovators and businesses, and we have moments where we have this beautiful string of decisions we make that just felt right, felt easy, with a knowingness. That is elite achievement in action through the flow of intuition. And it dovetails with imagination, because our ideas that we connect to, what do you think pops the good idea? intuition. Intuition is what brings the right idea to serve you, to help you have that breakthrough. And so, you know, in step 4, we learn to trust the intuition we've already got, and we learn to develop our intuition ongoing, because the more you develop it, the more you access that knowing, the more you're making decisions from a place of confidence and truly connecting to the magic of the detail of your environment, rather than stuck in analysis, trying to figure things out and wondering why you keep missing the target, you know. So these steps all come together as the foundation for what? Obviously, for you to be empowered with intuition, imagination, to have the confidence and resilience, and to be able to reinvent yourself. For what? So that you can live quality experiences from your heart, right? So that you can have a desire to say, I want to be expanded. I want to have beautiful experiences that make my heart dance. That's what it's all about. So this whole program is obviously about step 5, purpose. Now, you know, a lot of people say finding purpose, don't they? They say, you know, I haven't found my purpose, or I need to find my purpose. But I think that's a trap to think that way. I think if you were to deconstruct purpose, we all have something in common when it comes to purpose. And it's, we want quality experiences. We want experiences that quality is when the heart goes, yes, please, and it gets light, and it feels like it's expanding, and it's dancing. But when we have experiences that are not quality, in other words, they clash with our values, our heart, like a little purpose compass, says no, 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 and it gets burdened, and it gets jaded, and it feels broken, right? So one thing that came out of when I developed this step was values. Values are the language of the heart. And without values, the heart can't express itself for the why in whatever we do. So yes, we can have lots of experiences, but without values enriching that experience, we don't get the quality. And so there are 3 areas that really satisfy the heart. The first one is your purpose to honoring your individuality, your signature essence. The more authentic you are to yourself, the more you're allowing yourself to live the values with yourself in your own relationship. So there we're talking self-respect, the trust for your capability, honoring your worth. You know, when this happens, when you connect with yourself and are so comfortable in your own skin and allow the real you to express, it's a gift to you and everyone else. And we love being around people like that, because you're not being drained by trying to be something that you're not, you know. And you know, we admire people that just love themselves for wherever they are. That's a beautiful magnet, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the second area,
I love that statement. Values are the language of the heart. That really speaks to me.
Yeah.
Very powerfully.
Yeah, I tell you what, it unfolded through developing this step, that language. This was not something that I read somewhere and went, yes. This was something that just showed up just by sitting with purpose long enough. Yeah, it was pretty special to distill it in that language that makes so much sense, you know. So anyway, the second area is unity. Gosh, we love the connection with nature, with animals, with each other. And when we talk unity, we talk about giving and receiving now, beyond the relationship with ourselves, but now beyond us, to others, to nature. And what are we doing when we're giving and receiving through those values of caring, sharing, humor, trust, respect, love, adventure, fun, humor? When we're giving and receiving through those values, we experience a oneness, a unity where we feel like we're belonging beyond us to something even greater. We're being expanded from a place, and that belonging, that beautiful sacred connection, I call that love. So Of course, heart wants love, but there it is. It's the giving and receiving through the values, so that you can have love in the context of a romantic relationship, mateship, family, colleagues, nature, you know? We can experience that connection, that oneness, where you feel one with something else or other people, and that is a huge part of our purpose. The third area is adventure. It's expanding, treating the world like a playground, and allowing ourselves to expand and grow through new experiences, new innovations, new ideas, new food, new culture. And that is really important for us, because you know that the opposite to that is stagnation, boredom, feeling like you're dying slowly because you're not evolving, you're not growing, you know? And our heart, it really needs to be stimulated through adventure as well, you know? And so the whole program is about those three areas, and helping us be empowered to satisfy those three areas of our life.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. It really is my pleasure. And so there's a purpose hierarchy that came out of this, which is, where do you start? Where do you start the journey of your purpose? And of course we have to start with us, because if we don't get us right, everything else gets compromised. Because are we going to carry a disjointed, unsure of a part of our relationship with ourselves, our purpose, into trying to connect with others? Our insecurity will corrupt the connection. So we need to truly honor our purpose to ourselves first. So there are two parts to that we focus on. The first is your purpose. The most urgent is your purpose to your physical well-being, because your body is the instrument to collect quality experiences with. Your senses need to be heightened so that you can truly engage your environment. And so if that's compromised through pain, through medication, through disease, then forget trying to get quality experiences. Your instrument's been compromised. So your purpose to your physical well-being, your health, is such an absolute priority for your purpose. Honor the avatar suit that you have to enjoy quality experiences with. Now, often though, most people that I work with, their health is fine. We all have health goals, but they're at a level where I don't need to make that the first thing we focus on. And so we move to the other thing that is so underdone generally, which is emotional well-being, self-worth. So what is your purpose to your emotional well-being, your self-worth? Yes, that deserves to be a dedicated purpose. And so what do we do about that? And this is where we go through a 10-stage purpose developer template so that you begin to develop your purpose to yourself from scratch. Now, what I mean by from scratch is from values up. So in other words, you choose out of hundreds of values 50 that you have decided for you to be emotionally well, for you to be worthy. These are the values that are non-negotiable. So once you've chosen about 50 odd, and the reason why I ask for at least 50 is because you don't want it vague. You don't want to be value malnourished. You know, you want to enrich your brain with enough values so that the texture of what your emotional well-being is going to be about is detailed and rich and tangible. And so that's why we want a lot of values there. Then from there, we want to go, okay, we want to be empowered to live these values. So we start to focus on the 52 empowerment principles with a priority of 12 to 20. Just to get started on, okay, which principles, now that we've done personal assessment, are going to help you live those values. And then that becomes the brief. Your values and those principles become the brief so that you can turn on your imagination for what your life is going to look like with you being emotionally well and feeling your worth. And this is where we narrate your future, short-term, medium-term, long-term. And this is where we finish with the old version of you and we start to create the new version of you, so that in the way you narrate, you're acknowledging the way you used to be, but you're not judging yourself for it, and you're loving the fact that you've brought it into wisdom through the narrative. And then when you write who you're becoming, you're doing it to the level of the personal assessment about the principles, what you believe, the way you're thinking and feeling and acting. That level of detail, Graham, is so empowering, because it does take that level for the brain to be saturated with such repetition that eventually it just takes it on. Because the brain doesn't know what's real or not real. I keep saying this. It doesn't have a moral compass. Therefore, it can work against you or for you. So just as we got tricked into ideas that disempowered us and prevented us from living our purpose, now what we do is we narrate the future as if it's already real. And the brain gets tricked into configuring into the new version of you, so that becomes natural. And then from this purpose development template, we pull purpose-based goals out of that. We create neural triggers that will now allow you to trigger into the new version of you, not the old. And so it's 10 stages, and that level of repetition, immersion, is the power of making sure we're not gambling with the reinvention that needs to take place for you to live your purpose. And so what you'll find is that when people do this level of work, it's so extraordinary that they just change. They just feel different, and it's beautiful to watch. You know, it's quite powerful. So that's the purpose developer template. And remember I was saying to you about the purpose hierarchy, how we need you to have your purpose to yourself first? Well, what's happening there is now you're feeling your worth more. You're starting to feel very comfortable in your own skin. That magnet is changing.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and